Hello, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, the show trying to keep the world safe for ADHDers. And we are in the second session of a discussion of executive functioning and compensatory strategies. Okay, for last week we talked about executive functioning and what it is. Basically, it is frontal lobe functioning, and is the kind of thing that an executive does uh, for his company when he's given a project that he's supposed to finish it with a certain deadline and so on. It's all the planning, organizing, checking, double checking uh, functions of the brain. Okay, it's something that we tend to depend on more and more and more as we get older. Starting from when we first hit kindergarten till we um, graduate from college or graduate school or whatever we decide we want to do with our lives. Anyway, it you can be intelligent. That is, you can have a lot of information and all that sort of stuff. But if you can't organize it and use it, you got problems. Okay, and one of the biggest problem areas for ADHDers in executive functioning is what's called working memory. Okay, now working memory is a form of memory, but it's also a kind of part that's mostly the executive function, which for you, I know as clear as mud. But basically, what it amounts to is working memory is kind of the etch a sketch part of memory. It's the one where you go, I can remember that. I'm not going to write it down or anything, and then of course you forget it. Okay, so executive functioning. I said it last week that it's what I call etch a sketch memory because it's what you plan on holding in memory till you get the job done, and then it's gone. You don't care that it is gone. It's essential for a lot of things. Uh, Everything from your bathroom routine to doing what the boss told you to do, kind of thing. And a working memory is like an example of a problem in working memory is okay, you have your little ADHD child, and you say, I want you to go up in your room, I want you to make your bed, I want you to pick your clothes up off the floor, and I want you to put them in the hamper, and then arrange the books on your desk or all the stuff clean off your desktop. That's okay. And your ADHD child goes upstairs and you find him 40 minutes later playing video games, and the only thing that happened is the bed got made, maybe. And, parents who don't know anything about how ADHD works will tend to think he's lazy, he's undisciplined, he's defying me, all sorts of stuff. But basically, by the time he got upstairs, you're lucky the bed got made because everything else just disappeared. And it happens all the way through adulthood. It improves slightly with medication, but not always, and not to a great extent. We just don't know how much, and it seems highly individual as to whether or not you're going to have a significant improvement. So the deal with an ADHD is if you are thinking to yourself, oh, I'll remember this later, think you probably won't. And are you willing to pay the price for not doing it, for not remembering it? If it's just messing around with your friends or something like that, that may not be that big an issue. But if it's important, affects your livelihood, your marriage, that sort of thing, you better figure out a way to make sure it gets done. Okay, and there are all sorts of programs out there that'll tell you, and mostly what they do is they give an ADHDer the kind of a program that an obsessive compulsive would love to have. They're too detailed, basically what you need is some way to keep track of it. Okay. And it doesn't have to be anything real elaborate. It can be, but what it has to be is something you got with you. Okay. So, a big 3-ring binder is not going to be real helpful. Okay. The thing you have to have is something that's portable. Your cell phone, that's pretty good. I've been using a day timer for 100 years now, and it fits in my back pocket and it's with me most of the time. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. You have to have something, and don't get one of these things that got all these things in it that, fill out. What are you thinking about doing today? And how was supper last night? And, you know, don't get it complicated. Okay. For years, I don't know if you've ever seen a little steno book. It's about the same size uh, as a notebook. I mean, one of the spiral notebooks, but it's narrower and it fits in your back pocket. If you're a guy, if you're not a guy, well, you can put a whole bunch of stuff in most purses. So that okay. Anyway, the deal though is you want it to be one thing that you use. Don't be, one of these people who uses 3x5 cards sometimes and then a notebook sometimes and then a specially designed planner other times or a specially designed journal other times, so that you look at your desk or wherever you work and you've got 5 things with different pieces of information. Have one thing only. Don't have a whole bunch of stuff. One thing. And that is going to save your life, possibly your marriage, possibly your job. Okay? Make sure you get in the habit of not taking it for granted. Don't trust this thing because it's finicky. It may not retain it. Write it down, and you don't have to write a detailed paragraph, just a word or two that will remind you. And that's probably the most important thing. And like I said, there are all sorts of different ways of doing it. I'm 100 years old. I use paper and pencil because that's what I'm most comfortable with. You don't want to wait around for me to figure out how to put the information into my iPhone. I can do it, but it's not as fast as just writing it down in my handy dandy day timer. And this is not a commercial for a day timer, but their stuff is simple enough. They don't have so many details. I've got a whole bunch of planners in my possession that were recommended to me by various experts, and they're so complicated. I don't use them. They just irritate me. They're asking me all sorts of questions that I don't want to really talk about or think about or answer that have got nothing to do with me staying organized and getting the job done. The simplest one that still does what you need. That's what you need to do, and you can figure it out. Okay, understand. Uh, ADHDers have a tendency to like bright, shiny objects, colors, that sort of thing. So that may work out for you. That may, you get something that's got some color to it, or you always carry a highlighter with you, and so you can color your notes so they stand out for you. But color is more important to you than it is to neurotypical brains. And just remember that and use it to your advantage. Okay, it's not a weakness or anything. It's just something that will be helpful to you, and nobody else will even notice. So highlight important stuff. But I highly recommend that you use the same thing to work with your for your working memory that you do when you're trying to organize anything. I mean, a project or something like that. Do the same thing. Or if you know your daily to-do list, if you're into that. Okay. The other thing is if this is something that happens regularly. Okay, you're supposed to remember, like the going to bed routine or the weekly routine for how laundry gets done at your house and that sort of stuff. Do it the same way every time. You know, your morning routine, and work with your child for who has ADHD regularly, so he gets the routine. And I highly recommend what we call externalizing the executive, which, okay, working memory is weak. If I tell him to just, do 6 things to get ready for bed, probably not going to remember them all. So we externalize it. We put it out on a list on the wall, on the mirror, somewhere, in the bathroom, I mean. And that serves to replace the working memory function. Okay, and it's real important. It's real important for all kids, really, but it's even more important for ADHDers. And there's an outfit, Lazy Daisies, I think it is, and basically they make metallic things that you hang on the wall that have a getting to bedtime routine and a getting up in the morning routine, and you just move a little magnet when you've done it each task. And they're a Canadian company. I happen to know the boss. I mean, she was shy when I met her. Now she's in charge of a big company. It's pretty impressive. But anyway, if you can use something like that, because what you want to do, one of the ways around working memory problems is that you make as many things as you can routines, because when they become a routine, then they become a habit. It's like, I haven't thought about how you brush your teeth in many decades, shall we say. It's just something I don't even think about it. Oops, I'm ready for bed. Okay, fine. It becomes such a part of you, a part of your what you do all the time, that you don't even have to think about it. And that works well with ADHDers. Having routines which become habits, so they do it all the time without even thinking about it. And that gets around, that's a sort of a maneuver around the working memory problem. So that's one of the major things. And the other thing is, when you're you're writing or printing or doing your little note or whatever, however you do it, is that you don't get it too crowded. You want 1 or 2 word description: make bed, brush teeth, pick up clothes. Make it short and tight. And you don't want sentences. You don't want a big explanation kind of thing. You just want enough to jog. I started to say memory, but I think maybe we shouldn't be jogging memory in this situation. Just a little reminder that this needs to get done, and you can get as elaborate as you want with this. Okay, with God, you can set cell phones so that they ring an alarm when it's time for you to do this, that, or the other, and you can have a little message that says you're supposed to do stuff. I'm a neuropsychologist. Used to work with brain injured people. This was before cell phone. Everybody had a cell phone. There was a company that was paid a significant sum of money for a little directory sort of thing that they had, that sent a message to a person with brain injury telling him it was time to whatever, take his medication. It's time to, and basically cell phones came along and everybody's got one now. And so the and had a little beeper. You remember the old days when, oh, beep, 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 calls. Why do I want to call him or her? Anyway, the way beepers used to work, and that was based. They were based on that technology. Now you can program the darn thing yourself to remind you to do such and such, do such and such, do such and such. And if you're an adult, I probably recommend that you start using that because it's just so much more flexible than a paper and pencil thing. But there's nothing wrong with doing both of them. If there's nothing wrong with that. But you can set an alarm that, so that it goes off when you're about to get in the car to drive home after work, that reminds you, remember, you're supposed to pick up bread and eggs on the way home, and other, tricks like that. That's helpful for working memory. There isn't a whole lot of real fancy stuff. Well, I mean, I guess the cell phone is pretty fancy, but there's a lot of fancy stuff that you can do. Repeating it over and over again isn't going to help unless you plan on doing it all day. That's not really going to help retention. And be easy on yourself. Don't get on yourself because you made a mistake. I mean, that's a lot of ADHDers tend to have that problem. There you are, really negative about themselves because they've gotten so much criticism for their entire lives, and so they've been trained in how to be self-critical. Not helpful. Okay, you have ADHD. You didn't choose to have ADHD. You want to blame somebody, blame your parents because they passed it on to you. And just give yourself a break. Being upset doesn't do anything to help your memory or improve anything about your life. So, okay, I mean, this is about as simple as it gets. You have problems with working memory? Write stuff down. I mean, you could write it on sticky notes if you want to, except the darn things tend to fall off when you don't notice it, so then you're in trouble. So basically, write it down, print it down, as many things as you can. If it's something that happens over and over again, make it a habit, make it a routine. Every day, every Wednesday, coming home from work, I do this, or sort of like your morning and getting ready for bed routines. You've been doing them so long, you don't even think about them, and you pretty much routinely do them all pretty well. Okay, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass. This has been Dr. G's ADHD Chat, a show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. And we got big stuff coming up pretty soon, ladies and gentlemen. Look here, and if I learn how to do it, look where you pick up my show or my podcast, whichever. There'll be some announcements, and by the way, my website is terrygingrassphd.com. Please come to that. I have a few giveaway things, and we're changing that around a little bit to make it a little more important to you. And please sign up for the list. You'll get all the announcements earlier, and you'll be there when I'm going to start some programs and things, which are coming. Okay, I've been talking about this for a while now, but now we're pretty close. Okay, and we will catch you next time.